Welcome to Creamer Media's Polity. I'm Brad Dubbelman. In studio with me is Nick Norman, author of the book The Extraordinary World of Diamonds. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
The book speaks about mining on every continent in the world. What type of research was involved in writing this book?
Well, I've done quite a lot of work in southern Africa, as far north as Angola, in diamonds. Mainly South Africa, also Lesotho, and quite a bit in Angola. For the rest, there was a lot of reading, and I was very thankful for the internet and Google. And I luckily have come from a background where I've made contact over many years with a lot of people who are centrally involved in the diamond business. I worked for Rio Tinto for many years. Rio Tinto is now quite a big player in the diamond business. And I was put in touch with one of their geologists. He's in fact a consulting geologist. He's not on their payroll anymore. And his name is Chris Smith. And Chris was hugely influential in accumulating data for me. He's married to a Russian geologist, and she has been involved from an early stage in the Russian diamond business, which is really a major part of the business today. Chris has been in Australia. He was very, very close to the discovery of the massive deposit in Australia. When it comes to Canada, I have contacts with, in particular, Chris Jennings, who is the main sponsor of the book. And Chris was able to point me in directions where I was able to access a huge amount of information. So the exciting places today are Canada and Australia. And via Chris Jennings and Chris Smith, I've been able to get a massive amount of information from them. Being in contact with key figures in those particular places, all of Russia, Canada, and Australia, has meant that there's a lot of material in the book which has never seen the light of day before. A lot of the Russian stuff has never appeared in the public domain. It's from St. Petersburg University, via Galina, who is Chris Smith's wife, who is a graduate of St. Petersburg University. And I've been in touch with the authors of Russian books on diamonds. And so there's a lot of, I won't say it's first-hand. It would be, for it to be first-hand, it would have to mean that I'd been there, which I haven't. But it's close second-hand, let's say.
Now, you mentioned that behind the mystery of a diamond lies an extraordinary and fascinating story. What is your favorite story about the diamond?
There are two stories. You ask which are my favorite stories. And as far as the mining community is concerned, these would be the stories. Well, they're two parts of the same story, really. When the South African government realized that the Germans from 1908 onwards were extracting huge amounts of diamonds from their small diamonds, but very high quality diamonds from their Luderitz fields, they were concerned because at that stage South Africa had completely cornered the market in diamonds, and they wanted it to stay that way. Now here was an unknown colonial entity, German West Africa, mining diamonds on a big scale. What was it going to do to the international marketing of diamonds? So they sent a man called Dr. Hans Merensky to Luderitz to investigate the whole diamond business there. And Merensky was a geologist. He was German. He did a very thorough job of investigating in depth the mines, the fields that were being mined by the Germans. And he made a connection which many people mightn't have made, and which turned out to be crucially important. There are raised beaches, by which I mean that the sea level has been higher than it is now in the geological past. And terrace gravels, which you would see at sea level today being formed, occur at higher levels inland from the present coastline. And there are different ages at different levels above sea level. And he identified one particular raised terrace as being the prominent one from which the Germans were extracting the diamonds. And he noticed that not only were the bulk of the diamonds coming out of this particular raised terrace, but there was an absolutely infallible association between that raised terrace and fossil oyster shells. There is no geological reason why diamonds and fossil oyster shells should accumulate in the same place, other than that a lot of the other material, the sand and the clay and the small pebbles and so on, had been removed. It had been stable for a very long time. It was a very mature beach, and the boulders had survived, the oyster shells had survived, and the diamonds were still there. In 1926, a man called Jack Carsons discovered diamonds in the Namaqualand near Port Nolloth, and there was a stampede into that corner of South Africa. Dr. Hans Marinsky was in Germany at the time. He got word from South Africa, a cable was sent to him, and he got back as soon as he could. And he went down there now to, in normal circumstances, to find which particular patch of gravel is going to be richly diamondiferous and which is going to be sterile, requires testing of that gravel. You have to screen off the coarse stuff, you have to go through a whole long procedure to find out whether there are diamonds or not. And that's what people were doing. They had pegged their claims, they were screening and frantically trying to find water to wash the gravels and so on. Marinsky arrived, and he looked around, and he saw oyster shells. And he thought, hello, nobody else knows about this. And he pegged claims, and he pegged claims, and he pegged claims. And Marinsky himself had soon, and his partners, one or two partners, had soon secured the bulk of the Namaqualand diamonds in 1926, 27. He was unable to, he didn't have the resources to develop them himself, and he was getting on, he was looking forward to retirement, and he contacted Ernest Oppenheimer, who was, by virtue of the acquisition of the German rights, was about to get into a very powerful position in De Beers. He'd never been a director of De Beers before, but now he was about to enter De Beers in an influential way. And Marinsky brought Oppenheimer into the Namaqualand claims. De Beers, or Anglo-American, and De Beers explored the Namaqualand diamonds north and south of the discovery point until they got to the Orange River, and they realized that across the river the rights belonged to them anyway, and they were the richest parts of the field against the river, south of the river. But there must be north of the river as well. But as one looked across the Orange River, quite a wide river at its mouth, there on the other side were these high dunes. They had to get under the dunes. Well, it was just a question of engineering and logistics and so on. They did that. For a long time there was no bridge over the Orange River. They went across with barges. They stripped the sand off, found the same gravels, and they spent the next practically 100 years, 80, 90 years, developing what became the biggest alluvial diamond field in history. 100 million carats of 95+% gem diamonds. Not very big, but all perfect stones. And if you think of what 100 million carats of diamonds means in terms of rands and cents, it's just unbelievable. So that's a nice story, that Ernest Oppenheimer was able to acquire the rights from virtually under the nose of De Beers, rights which weren't considered to be that important, but which in the light of history turned out to be hugely important.
Some gemstones are considered more rare than diamonds. However, De Beers tells us that diamonds are forever, and Marilyn Monroe even sang a song about diamonds. What is it about the stone that captivates us so much?
Diamonds are not rare. Diamonds really occur in substantial quantities in various deposits like at Chwaneng in Botswana and in Argyll in Australia. And there are many gemstones, semi-precious mostly, and precious, which are much rarer. But there is nothing that has the hardness of a diamond. There is no mineral that has the hardness of a diamond. So you say, well, the guy who's buying his wife an engagement ring, or the woman who's dreaming about a piece of jewelry, is really not considered, is not concerned that much with the hardness of the stone. But there are other things. The diamond has a refractive index far higher than any other stone, which means any other gemstone, which means that it breaks light up into its spectrum. So you get fire and life and just much greater vibrancy from your diamond than you get from any other stone. I read a comment recently by somebody who'd seen the Hope diamond, which is a fairly deep blue stone, and he is a gemstone expert. He's seen lots of sapphires, big sapphires. The Hope is a big diamond, big blue diamond. And he said there's just no comparison between a diamond and a sapphire, between that Hope diamond and an equivalent sized sapphire. He says just the life, the sparkle, the fire in that stone, there's nothing like it. Unlike any other stone, a diamond that is found in Lüderitz, for example, may have come from the depths of Botswana, it may have come from the heights of Lesotho. It's traveled literally well over 1,000 kilometers. There's no other stone that can do that. There's no other stone that was formed 150 kilometers below the surface. And you say, well, so what? Come back to the woman who's looking at a priceless piece of jewelry in the shop window. She's not concerned really with whether it came from 150 kilometers below the surface or whether it traveled 1,000 kilometers down the Orange River. But there is a huge romance which is part of the package.
How has the exploration and mining of diamonds changed over the years?
It's changed a lot. The whole of exploration, mineral exploration, is like a detective game, and that's what intrigues geologists. That's why geologists love getting together and talking about the latest things that are going on. And over 100 years of South African history, nearly 150 years of South African history, breakthroughs have been made steadily, both geology, in geology, in geophysics, and in geochemistry. The shortcuts that need to be taken to evaluate at an early stage whether a deposit that has been found is likely to be payable or not, those shortcuts are the advances that have taken place over the last, particularly the last 50 years, but to an extent over the last 120, 130 years.
Do you think diamonds will still be precious 1,000 years from now?
I think they'll be just as precious then for the same reason as they're precious now. I think that they are unique. They do have a mystique about them. They have this allure that we can't, as I've just said, we can't necessarily explain. But that's not going to go away. And I think that a point that needs to be made is that synthetic diamonds, which can now be made in factories and laboratories, are not really going to pose a threat to the diamond mining industry, talking about that industry as what we know conventionally today, where big holes are made in the ground and trucks come out trundling out of those holes, carrying lots of ore, which may contain small amounts of diamonds. That is going to carry on. The romance, the magic of Earth-1 diamonds is not going to disappear.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay.
That was Nick Norman, author of The Extraordinary World of Diamonds.
Donate now and give 15 Rand a month. SMS JOIN to 41486.